living that life. We just living that life. Talking plies, living that life. We just living that life. You're listening to the Living That Life Digital Nomad podcast. Hit the subscribe button on iTunes if you're a boss, and check out the YouTube channel for dope travel videos. Let's get it.
What up? Welcome back, Living That Life podcast. Let's just jump right into it. We got David McNeil on the line of Expat Empire. His website is right here. He is an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, and now he is a consultant, and he helps people transition from regular ass life to expat life. And if you follow my channel, you know Living That Life is all about digital nomad life. So being an expat, that means living. What does living even mean? Spending time, extended periods of time in other countries. So expatempire.com is his site. Check it out. And he's got this dope ebook that I wish I knew about years ago, because I got so many emails. Riley, what should I know before making the jump to Chiang Mai or to Bali or Thailand? Boom! Right here, top 10 tips for moving abroad. Everything I wish I had known before moving, living, and working abroad. So we're going to cover this in this episode. And if you already are, share this with a friend. And I'm assuming most people watching this are thinking about it, leaning towards it. So we're going to get into it. So David, what's up? Where are you at right now?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm in Porto, Portugal right now, actually in a little city just outside of Porto called Matosinhos, which is a beach town. So even better as far as I'm concerned, trying to pick up a little surfing, but still at the early stages.
Nice. Another beach town, I'm here in Bali, just,
exactly.
Surf life, surfing. Okay, cool. Well, let's just jump right into it. I mean, I guess real quick, like you're an entrepreneur. Of course, you have online businesses and stuff. What led you to now start a business around consulting people with like living abroad?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for some context for listeners, my background is more originally in finance. So I did that for 2.5 years as an investment banking analyst. Was sick of that 6 months in, but took another 2 years to get out of it. And then I started working as a product manager. So I've been doing that in many countries around the world so far. So I started out in the US in San Francisco. And then I had an opportunity to go to Beijing for 3 months with a company that I was working for in San Francisco. Then I took the opportunity to go to Tokyo. I worked there for 2 years. Then I worked 3 years in Berlin. And now I've been here in Porto for 1 year. So to me, it was an opportunity to take all of that experience moving to other countries and kind of take a step back and look at the 30,000 foot view of my life, which was, of course, doing these different jobs in these different countries, but I wasn't as passionate about the product management part as much as the living abroad part. Of course, that was what was driving me forward. I still wanted to maintain my career at the time, so I was still looking for those international job opportunities. But then I realized, actually, I'm a little tired of working for other people. I want to start working for myself. What can I do? What is my expertise? What am I most passionate about? And that to me was to live abroad, and I really clearly feel a strong passion for that. So I wanted to be able to bring that to bear in terms of services and helping other people to explore those possibilities abroad. And that really gives me joy. So that's where Expat Empire came from. It started as a side project about 2.5 years ago. And I've just recently made it my full-time gig. So really doubling down and doing the best I can to grow it from here.
Fuck yeah. Before we jump into this top 10 tips, what's the most common question that you get from people who are I guess, thinking about the expat digital nomad live abroad life?
Yeah, I really talk to people coming from all different backgrounds and walks of life. So it's hard to say, what's most common. But what I typically see, certainly most recently, is a lot of Americans trying to move to Europe, if not to other places, but definitely a strong interest in Europe, at least for a long-term living. And the typical questions, I mean, there's a lot of concerns about things like safety, stuff like that. So that's unfortunate, because I think
it's safe to travel.
It's much better. Yeah, it's much better, I think, than what I saw and what I've seen, what I've experienced in the United States. So I don't think that there should be too much concern about that. But I think it's just helping them to understand, okay, when we talk about safety, there's different levels of safety. And even if what you're used to in the United States you think is safe, I would actually argue that, especially here in a place like Portugal, it's incredibly
It's more
safe,
safe
or
in
Japan.
America, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think so.
Like, it depends there's many meanings of safe. Like what are you talking about? Say, are you talking about murder rate? You're talking about crime rate? You're talking about
Right.
drug addiction? Are you talking about suicide? Are you talking about accidents on roads? What are you talking about? Safe? Anyway, whole nother rant.
Exactly.
But okay, let's just let's dive into it. Say we just go through the top 10 and then we just kind of riff on each one.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine real life, not the fantasy.
Yeah, so for me, this is a lot about the idea that, and I had this problem as well when I was first starting out. I had many daydreams about going across Europe, about doing a round the world ticket, all of that good stuff. And what you think about in those times, which might be going out to the bar with friends, going to a cafe, taking in the scenery, taking in the sights, the museums, all that stuff is great. But if you're having to actively work there, and I mean, maybe this is more for people who are there long term with a job and things like that. Of course, if you're financially independent, if you're retiring, things like that, then you'll probably have maybe even closer to that experience than I've been able to. But I think it's important to think about, there's big cultural differences that you're going to have to get accustomed to. You're going to have to deal with a lot of government officials and bureaucracy. If the weather's not always great or aligned with exactly what you like, then for me, like in Berlin, it was pretty much 6 months of gray and cold every year, which was pretty tough because I was more, originally from California and spent a lot of time in the south in the United States. So that was quite different. Or just the fact that if you're working and you have to be in the office and maybe you have to work late, if you're working in a country that has those types of not as good work-life balance, like a place like Japan, it's going to be very different than maybe what you're imagining in your head, which is exploring all the cool shops and stuff like that. So I think it's just good to take a step back and think about, what is the real life going to be like, my day-to-day life? How am I going to spend my time? And not just thinking about the awesome trip you had to Italy, for example, which of course is amazing, but it's different between being a tourist and living somewhere long-term.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not vacation, even though like it's way more vacation, like I feel like, than a regular ass at home life. It's not vacation 24/7. And anywhere, even in sunny Southeast Asia, it's not quote unquote sunshine and rainbows 24/7 either. Like for example, this week it literally is rainy for like the next 2 weeks. But anywhere you live, life has its ups and downs and ebbs and flows for sure. All right, let's get into wherever you go, there you are. Oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, maybe a little philosophical, but the idea is, even if your idea is to go somewhere where no one knows you, to start over, be able to, I don't know, reset people's expectations of you and things like that, which is all good and fun. At the end of the day, if you only see moving abroad or going somewhere different as an escape, then you're still going to have to deal with some of the maybe rough sides of your personality that we all need to work on ourselves in one way or another, right? And that's an ongoing process. But I think it's more about looking at the opportunities and the benefits of being in a new place rather than just looking at it as an escape. And that's just kind of what I'm talking about here. And naturally, some people feel that way about moving abroad, other people don't. But it's good. Once again, these are just things to keep in mind as you consider the opportunity to go to a new country.
100%. It will not deeply change the essence of who you are. Absolutely. Yeah. If just because you move to another country doesn't mean you're going to become a genius savant entrepreneur or get twice as good looking, maybe a little bit more good looking in foreign countries. Maybe we can get it.
Let's hope so.
Maybe one or 2 points, but yeah, it's not going to, yeah, you guys get it. Don't overthink it. I like this one. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so as I mentioned there at the top, so I also have the Expat Empire podcast where I talk about a lot of people who move abroad. And the number one thing that everyone says, and I'm not sure if they're just listening to episodes and then copying each other, but I have a feeling that they're all independently arriving at the conclusion that people who are thinking about moving abroad just need to do it. And so it doesn't mean you shouldn't do your research. You shouldn't figure out how you can make it work financially, legally, immigration-wise, this, that, and the other. But don't overthink it to the point where you're having some analysis paralysis. So that's the main point here. Just get it done.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll throw in, I always say too, do do that 2 week vacation. Ideally, more than 2 weeks, 3 or 4 is twice as good as 2 weeks. Yeah, there's no excuse not to do that. At least do that extended holiday vacation to check out some spots.
Absolutely.
Yep. Breaking the bank.
Yeah, so relocating can cost a lot of money. I guess that's the whole point of this, which is to say, and naturally, different for people of different expectations in terms of their lifestyle, in terms of if they're moving somewhere long term versus kind of going from place to place, and what sort of deals that you can get. But you have to, if you're moving somewhere long term, as I talk about here, you have to really think about your initial deposit that you have to put down in the place, which could be 2 to 6 months worth of rent, things like that. Of course, your airfare, shipping all of your stuff, storage, figuring out where you're living when you first move to a city before you find that long-term place, using immigration lawyers. So definitely different for people who are expecting to go for just a couple weeks or a month or a handful of months and hop from place to place. They don't have to worry necessarily about some of these pieces, but it adds up. That's the point. So at least have some money in the bank and have some excess in case things don't work out or they don't go your way, because you never know. You need to have that rainy day fund, I think, at least a little one.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, I would tell people, pencil out all your transition expenses. Of course, sell all the shit that you can. OfferUp is a good app.
Yeah.
That's where I sold all my shit when I made the jump. But yeah, don't forget to do the accounting, pencil in your transition expenses. And I bet for a lot of people, part of the reason to move abroad is for more favorable cost of living. And I think we'll get into that later.
Sure.
Don't let your belongings weigh you down.
This is exactly what you just said. Get rid of stuff. So I tell people,
nice.
Put their things into 3 piles: sell or donate, store, which should be storage, but basically hopefully not that much stuff, and then what you bring, which is either the smallest group of things or connected about the same size as storage. So don't take all your stuff. It's expensive. It will weigh you down, and ultimately, if you do end up staying somewhere for a long time, you don't know what the size of that place is, what the aesthetic is, and it's usually better just to buy new furniture if you have to anyway.
Yep. You guys already know. Boom. Oh, I love it. I'm going to steal that. The challenges of house hunting. Okay.
Yeah. So this is a little bit different if you're just looking for Airbnbs, hostels, hotels, things of that sort. But the idea of finding that long-term apartment can be quite challenging in some cities. And I've dealt with that in all the cities I've lived in the last year: San Francisco, Tokyo, Berlin, and now in Porto. So a lot of these cities, lots of people moving in, people, moving from San Francisco to Berlin, for example, it's going to be a totally different budget expectation. So that also drives up the local prices as well. And it's just the fact that there's relatively low supply and much higher demand is going to just drive those prices higher and higher. So it also can be a thing where if you want that long-term apartment, because a lot of stuff is going up in Airbnb, for example, then you're going to have to compete against 25 people to get that spot. So it can be challenging, but as long as you're prepared for it and you also do your preparation ahead of time in terms of booking some stuff initially so you can find that place, then you'll be fine. Don't let it keep you from being abroad, but just be aware that this is a problem in more and more cities, and I'm sure it will continue to grow in the future years.
What has been the kind of go-to? Because when I move to a place, I always start with Airbnb just to check it out. So I'll book like 2 to 3 nights, stealing the Tim Ferriss method, just to make sure it's good and you like the neighborhood and location. Now that can backfire if someone else books it after that, but if you want to extend, you can either do it through Airbnb, or a lot of Airbnb hosts will do it outside of Airbnb, pay them cash or whatever. Same with month to month. I've done many Airbnbs for a short stay, and then I'm like, okay, I want to stay for another month, and just do month to month outside of Airbnb. Have you used like real estate agents, or are there like some go-to like websites like Apartment Finder or some shit? Or I've never used a real estate agent, but I know some people who have had success with that.
Yeah, and it does depend, of course, on the city and the country and where you're going to. But there are usually local sites that you can access as well that are going to have a lot more detail on the local listings for more long-term places. And you can certainly use real estate agents. I would recommend using one that's not going to charge you any money. Like here I've found one here in Portugal that in Porto that the seller, or the owner rather, will pay that person when he finds the right tenant. So I think that's a better situation. And in terms of just one other tip, I totally agree with book a couple nights in Airbnb, see how it is, make sure it's good before you invest further. But if you do have a longer place and you don't get that side deal, let's say in cash, some of those places also have, if you book over 28 nights, for example, you get a lower monthly rate. So I saved a couple hundred when I first moved to Porto, getting a place just because we were just over that 28-day limit. So we got the monthly rate, which was like 15% cheaper. So.
Yep. Let's see. Give yourself time to get settled. What about this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that you have to do when you first move somewhere. And I always think, oh, I'm going to just hit the ground running. I'm going to get this stuff done and everything's going to be awesome. The reality is it can take a long time, especially if you're dealing with immigration, trying to find, place to live and getting settled there. Of course, if you have to start a new job, all of that stuff, on top of actually finding those real friends. And what I mean is not just the buddy that you get the bar, the beer at the bar with, which is always great when you're just starting out. But if you are staying somewhere long term and you want to make those close relationships, that's going to take time. I mean, you can't rush that stuff. So I usually say expect 1 year until you really feel like you're settled. And then that sets the right expectation. Hopefully it's less, but I've also generally seen it take at least a year, time and time again. So set your expectations. And if it's only been 3 months and you're like, why haven't I figured this shit out yet? Well, it's probably because it's going to take more time. And just be easy on yourself about it, recognize that, and just move forward.
Yep, for sure. I've noticed consistently over the last 6 years, when I'm moving to a new place, city, the 2-month mark always comes up as what actually starting to meet friends. Every time it's like around 2 months, then you're kind of integrated with the social scene and like making friends.
How do you deal with that? Yeah, how do you deal with that in terms of being on the road so much and moving around so much?
Well, I'm not on the road a lot. I'm slow. I'm slow travel. So 6 months in one place, a year in one place.
Gotcha.
So I'm a slow travel guy. I'm not. But yeah, just that's just my little tip. The two months thing has always keeps popping up after a couple months. Then that's when I kind of start to adjust to the new culture / friends, finding your crowd, I guess.
Right.
Are you committed to living like a local?
Yeah. So I've definitely seen this in the countries I've moved to, particularly in Japan. So a lot of foreigners like me first want to go there and think, oh, I'm going to live the Japanese experience. I'm going to live a local experience. And it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, not just to build those relationships, because it is, I think, much easier and quicker to build close relationships with other expats, other foreigners there, because you have that similar background, at least it doesn't have to be the same country that you come from. It doesn't have to be the same exact job or situation, but you have that commonality and maybe a common tongue. So not only is a language a challenge and potentially breaking into those local groups and local communities, but yeah, you have to change yourself quite a bit as well, maybe culturally, the way that you approach things. So I think it's good for people that are going to a place for 6, 12, 24 months, however long, or maybe to retire, to think through those possibilities and see if that's something that they want, or if they want to build that friend group around them that's more foreigner heavy. And either way is fine. You can do it the way that you want to do it, but worth thinking about.
Yep. My kind of my tips on this subject are looking back, I always if I didn't meet any local friends, I always look back and wish I made local friends. So my tips to people, try to make some local friends in like your first 1 or 2 months. It's always just nicer just to know that local friend or two or group of friends that you can ask whatever cultural question or just like random stuff. So that meet local friends. It's not hard to meet friends, guys, like whatever, go to meetups and you have check the Expat Empire website for meetups. Also meetup.com and Facebook groups. Like it's not hard to meet friends or just freaking go out and talk to people. People speak English. Okay. Pretty much everywhere people speak English. Okay. It's not hard to meet friends. And the internet makes it easier, in my opinion. And then other expat friends that you meet, they have local friends. So get introduced to their local friends through them. So always gonna have local friends. And then I found I love languages. So even if it's just the basics, I found I love to learn the numbers. So like 1 through 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 100, and then learn how to say how much, and then just like coffee, just what you do every day, just be able to order your coffee. Okay, 1 iced coffee, how much? Okay, 20, boom. So learn a little bit of the language. I would definitely recommend that, even if it's only a month.
It goes a long way. People really appreciate it. And that's, once again, as you say, a great way to get that intro or that connection with the local as well. And then it just goes from there. So totally agree with you.
Yep. And then another note on language, I found just being there, you're not going to learn the language. Just be, I'm in Berlin, I'm going to learn German.
No.
It takes energy and effort and studying and practice to learn the language. You're not just going to pick it up just because you're hearing people talk it. That's my experience.
Yeah. And then the question is, how much time do you want to invest on that, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, it gets harder the older that you get too.
Yep. Like I wish I knew way more Indonesian and Thai and Vietnamese and stuff, but it's like, when am I going to pencil in that time? So actually looking back in hindsight, I would recommend, I thought about this so many times and never pulled the trigger. Just do like one lesson every other week or like a once a week lesson. I think it's worth it, especially if you're a language person like me. It's enjoyable. If you enjoy it, you like it, commit to hiring a tutor and a regular lesson. Because for me, I was like, I'm going to learn the language, and then it's easy to procrastinate because you don't need it. You don't need it because everyone speaks English, and you have Translate on your phone in case they don't. So looking back to my past, Riley, book that freaking tutor or periodic lesson. So it's just like, it's done. You have to go.
Agreed.
Know when it's time to move on. What about this?
Yeah. So this one for me is to figure out essentially, I guess, as it says, knowing when it's time to move on. So for you, is it really the time to move to the next country? And I think a lot of us have this wanderlust, and we're always thinking about where's the next spot, and the grass is always a bit greener, right? But and maybe you also think, I'm a bit homesick, perhaps I want to go back home, whatever it might be. So for all of this, I think it's just looking at it honestly, recognizing that there are pros and cons to no matter where you're living, no matter where you're traveling to. These there's always going to be stuff that's not ideal. So for me, I try to look at it in sort of two ways. How can I increase my average quality of life? So for me, I've tried to do that in my own journey from Japan to Germany to now to Portugal. And of course, you have to decide what that means for you. But also, I really try not to have any regrets. And the way that I think about that in this case, I say that kind of broadly across my life, but the way that I think about that in this case is, what do I really enjoy about here? And if I were to move to somewhere else, would it really solve that problem? And it also goes back to that self-reflection. Is it something that I can do, that I can change, the people that I have around me, or the situation that I'm in versus that country? And if it is a long-term place and you're thinking about moving on, then where is best for you based on what you've experienced so far? And in the country that you're currently in, have you done everything that you wanted to do? Because I wouldn't want to leave a place and then think, I didn't do these three things. So also, as a part of just in general not having regrets, is I really try to take every day and every weekend, whenever I have time, to do those things on my to-do list, because you never know when a pandemic might hit, or whenever the job, you might lose your job, whatever the situation is. Then you have to go and move on for reasons that you're not ready, that you don't want You don't want to, you're not ready to. So to that extent, just use the time that you have. Don't get too comfortable and go to the same spots every time. Of course, go to the restaurants that you love and stuff, but always keep exploring new cities, new countries around nearby, and make the most of the time.
Yep, for sure. And on that ties in with getting settled. When you go to a new place, you're going to want to do the touristy things for the first like few weeks or a month. Like when you visit Bali, you're going to want to do the surfing and do all the whatever Airbnb experiences, and in a new city you're going to want to do all the sightseeing. So expect that to be a lot of the touristy stuff the first month, but get it out of the way the first month. I found just like boom, do all that stuff, boom, it's out of the way. So you've kind of like, so you're not regretting not doing something if you decide to leave. And on knowing when it's time to move on, I think this goes hand in hand with the digital nomad philosophy and the online based career philosophy is you can move on whenever the bleep you want to. That's the point of it. It's not, oh, you work online because you have to live in another country, or you have to live in somewhere tropical, or you work online so you have the option. If you want to move back home, fucking great, you can. You're not stuck in the other country because you can work from a laptop. They were both looking into. So that's the online based. That's the reason that we have this career, is to have options. Not everyone has the option. If you're working abroad for a company, then you have a contract or whatever, different situation. So I guess the tip is always work online, have an online based thing if you can, obviously.
Yes.
Yep. That way you're on your own, your location independent. There you go. Boom, that was it. Did we just go through all the 10? Yeah.
I think so. We might have missed one at the top. I'm not sure, but yeah, pretty much that's all the good stuff.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, on my last little point there, let's see.
This one here, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
one more at the top.
So to talk about this, and this also ties into what people are doing indeed in their online businesses as well, but what is the quality of life that you're looking for? And what does that mean for you in terms of the income that you need to have coming in and the expenses that you need to have going out to make sure that it works for you, long term, let's say, especially moving around and so forth. So I mean, it's just sort of simple math, but you need to have the right amount of income coming in from different revenue sources and things of that nature. And then figuring out, okay, are you going to be going to Michelin starred restaurants and buying expensive clothes and bags and this stuff every weekend? Or are you going to be, living more of the street food and the, small mom and pop restaurants and not going too crazy on the parties and going to the big clubs and things like that. So you have to figure out those pieces. And of course, a big part of being digital nomad as well is dealing with that sort of economic arbitrage of going to the right, location that's going to be maybe cheaper lifestyle for you. But just thinking through those pieces to make sure that, okay, you can live the life that you want. You're going to be happy there, because if you want something that place that you cannot afford or that place can't give you, then that's probably a bad place to start, which is why this one's at the top, is just think about where's your money coming from? What are you going to be spending it on, and making sure the math works.
Yep. So again, guys, you can get this ebook at expatempire.com. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I'm just gonna go to my core audience, obviously, because all my videos are in Southeast Asia. This is where I happen to be based for the 6 years. Of course, do your budgeting, but big picture, you can live in Chiang Mai, Thailand for $1,000 a month. For $1,000 a month. In Bangkok, I spend closer to 3-4K a month. But the thing, and in Bali, probably 3-4K a month as well. But the thing about Southeast Asia, which is most people watching my channel are interested in Southeast Asia because they found my videos. The thing about Southeast Asia is your budget is up to you. So you can go as little as $1,000 a month. If you've seen Chris the Freelancer's mini documentary called Living on 600 or Living on Under 600, he lived on $600 a month in Chiang Mai. So that's the great thing about developing countries and, living abroad in general, whether South America, Asia, whatever, is you can live for like half, a third, a quarter of your cost of living. And Southeast Asia is so popular amongst digital nomads because big digital nomad community, great coffee shops, co-working spaces and stuff. And you can live on $1,000 a month. So people who are thinking they have their online side hustle and it's not making that much money, but maybe it's making like $1,000 a month or like 2,000 or something like that. They can now leave their corporate job sooner than they would be able to if just staying in America, let's say.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge thing. And people ask me all the time, a big question I get is, should I be making a consistent 1,000 or 1,000 plus online before I make the jump?
Right.
Well, that's a complicated question. It comes down to different things. How much savings do you have in your bank account? Okay. What's the situation with your online business? Is it like, are you getting traction? Is it when do you think you're going to be able to make, a consistent 1,000 plus? Maybe you're freelancing too. It could be freelancing or having online business, anything online. What's the situation with your current job? So, first of all, how much are you getting paid at your current job? So I would tell my old self, and I tell friends this, if you're getting a great freaking salary, if you're making like 100K a year, I would say stick that out as long as you can possibly handle and stack that cheddar. Looking back, when I moved abroad 6 years ago, I wish I had more saved up. I only had like 8K like saved up in my bank account. I look back, I'm like, I wish I had closer to like 20K, like at least. And my online business happened to take off, but in another universe, like it didn't. And then also, what's your current like career path, I guess, in your current job? Like if you leave your job, are you going to be able to go back to it? Would that, like, let's say your online business like flops, or, because it's doing well now, it doesn't mean it's not going to, it could flop in 6 months, like with Corona, the economy changes and business things happen to businesses. So if you have to go back to that job, could you, or could you easily get the same job at another company? So those are things to consider. And then also just like, how freaking sick and tired of you are you of your job? Like for me, I was like so sick and tired. I was like, me and Parker were like, we're going to quit our job October 2014. That was when there was a conference happening in Thailand. That's kind of never went home after that. We're like, no matter how much we have saved, we're going to that conference and we're jumping in with both feet. And no matter how much we're making online, we weren't making any at the time, but within 6 months, we were able to, our Amazon thing started to take off, making 1, 2, 3, 4K a month within 6 months. So, we got quote unquote lucky. Not every business takes off with the first, thing in the bat, or first or second even. But those are all things considered. So I did it. I quit my job before I had a full-time or even consistent or making any money online. And for some people that makes sense. Just jump in with both feet. It's going to create that urgency. You're going to have all of your days and weeks and months to be able to focus on that side hustle. So I tell people, like, even if it's just for like a month or 2 months, if you can leave your job, like take a sabbatical or whatever, if it's something you can easily go back to. For me, it was corporate sales, easy to go back to. They'll take you anytime.
Yeah.
So it was just like, totally, fuck yeah, let's go there and just take 6 months and save up 8K. We're like, all right, we can get 6 months of living expenses in Chiang Mai. Let's fucking 100% focus on the side hustle. And I know many people, for an interview with Eric Engels, you guys can check out my podcast. He came out to Chiang Mai, online thing didn't take off, went back, worked for another winter, saved up again, came back to Asia again. And then he may still be traveling. I don't know if his business took off yet, but for some people, it takes multiple years for their business to take off. And that's just a great case study of, doesn't work out every time. But yeah, don't be afraid to just freaking jump in with both feet. That's that's how
I feel too. No, I was doing this Expat Empire as a side project for about 2.5 years. And recently, through a layoff, basically, I took the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm ready to dig in on this thing, and kind of had been putting it it was in the back of my mind for a long time, and I was trying to keep it going. But it's totally different doing something as a side project versus your full-time gig. And not only in terms of your energy and your motivation and the urgency, of course, like you talked about, but it really changes the perspective a lot. So I recommend, I think it's good to have some savings indeed, just in case things don't go the way that you plan. But all the points that you brought up are totally spot on, I think. And this is the calculation I've done for myself as well. So.
Yep. You can always go back to that job. You can always, if there's freelancing, you can always start a freelancing thing, have multiple things going on. And I guess for the people who, another huge question I get is, okay, Riley, I want to be a digital nomad like you. I want to live that life. What do I do to get started online? Or maybe someone's like, maybe they want to retire. They're looking to retire, but they also want to have something online as well to supplement their fixed income or whatever. There's three main categories of making money online. There is a freelancer. There is a remote employee. So you're employed, you have a job, you're just doing it remotely, which everyone does now.
Yeah,
so because of Corona. And then third is ideal, and that's owning your own online business. That means you own something where you're making money 24/7. You're not trading your time for money. You have some sort of online-based business. Customers can order from your site, or even if you're a consultant, you still have a website where people can find you at any time and be engaged with your business. So those are the three categories, and the first two can be good to start with because they're quicker to earn. You can start freelancing and make money. Some people with freelance writing have made their first $1,000 within 90 days. Having a podcast interview about that, about a guy who specializes in that. You guys can look that up. Also, working remotely for a company is now huger than ever because of Corona. Now all the companies are like, okay, you can work from home. I have another podcast interview about that with probably a couple about how to negotiate a remote work agreement with your employer. It's probably, I need to revise that one because now it's even easier with Corona. You just have to make sure that they're okay with you living in another country. But always on the side, guys, you should be working on building your own business, your own online business, something that you own, that makes you money 24/7, and that's the best.
Yeah, no, I think this is great advice, and it can be a process that you do over, multiple months and trying different things, and indeed starting with something, you get that lead magnet, then you start making paid products, and then maybe you're doing some freelancing, some consulting. You figure out what that strength is that you have, and you turn that into your business, and of course, you're living proof of it. So that's great.
Yep. Yeah, and you too. There's many, many, many things you can do online, and guys, no excuses to not have an online-based income now. Many, many, many things, but that's basically what my channel is. My podcast is about interviewing other digital nomads who make money online or have a location-independent career, whatever. So, of course, you guys are already subscribers, so share this with a friend, I guess.
Absolutely.
And check out David's podcast. So you have a podcast, yeah?
Yeah, Expat Empire Podcasts on all the podcast networks. You can find it. Just search that. I talk to a lot of people that are living abroad for various different reasons. Have done all kinds of stuff from building their own businesses to English teaching to doing working for companies abroad. So really all kinds of different people, all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences. So maybe that will be some further inspiration for folks out there that needed a little extra push.
Yep, for sure. Well, there it is, guys. expatempire.com. Check it out. And of course, if you're already living that life out here, enjoying the good life, then tag a friend or whatever who needs to come join you. So yeah, David,
right,
that
right
was
on.
good. That was That was fun, and yeah, we'll be in touch, and yeah, maybe catch you around the world somewhere.
Absolutely. I need to get over there to Southeast Asia sometime soon, so look forward to it.
Oh man, Bali, it's a must visit. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Right on.
All right, man. Peace.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.